All right, Voldemort, it's another week here, and oh boy, do we have lots of different things to talk about this week. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
even
we
know where
do.
to start. Um,
Uh, Congratulate the Lakers for the
no, no,
because it's
no,
expected.
no. I'm a Celtics fan. Screw the Lakers. Um, no, I will say though, I do like their Black Mamba jerseys though. Those are pretty snazzy. I looked at some of the merchandising that like pops up on like ESPN, Bleacher Report, and whatnot, and it's like all black with the gold lettering. And that's kind of snazzy.
Yeah,
Maybe that's just like favoritism because that's what our high school colors were, but
possibly. But I
it,
guess
it looks pretty
yeah.
good.
All right,
Um,
we'll get back to the NBA finals later.
yeah. I guess let's talk about a little bit. Let's talk about a little football first.
Mm.
Um, let's see. The Jets still suck. The Giants still suck. The Falcons can't do anything. And let's take a look at the standings here. We got the Bills leading the division at 4-0. We got Pittsburgh 4-0. Tennessee 3-0. Kansas City dropping their first game to the Raiders are now 4-1. That was a big back and forth game. The NFC East is a crapshoot because we have the 0-5 Giants, but then leading the division are the 2-3 Cowboys, who lost Dak Prescott for 4 to 6 months, basically the entire year,
Yeah.
to a gruesome ankle injury. Um, Speaking of gruesome injuries, the
Yeah.
unnamed Washington football team, their quarterback went down and out, so returning for the first time in 2 years after 17 surgeries, possible almost amputation on his leg. Alex Smith returned, but the team did not seem to like him as he got sacked like 6 or 7 times yesterday. So I don't know how much of a welcome back to football that was, letting your quarterback get sacked that many times. Packers are 4-0. Bears are right behind them at 4-1. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-2 with the Panthers at 3-2. Seattle Seahawks survived the scare. They're still 5-0. Or they're now 5-0, still undefeated, and the Rams are 4-1 right behind them. So a lot of teams undefeated right now, mostly because the Tennessee Titans just can't seem to get things together. There are a lot of rescheduling over these next few days.
Yeah, I have the list up right now, and this isn't even. This is because partly because the Patriots are also still shut down. They have now four positive tests over the last 8 days as of yesterday, which is the 11th, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, the 11th. So some of these include the Kansas City's matchup with the Bills in Week 6 has been moved back a few days to allow the Jets and Dolphins to have their match moved from Week 10 to Week 6, and their Week 6 matchup being moved to Week 11. The Jaguars game against the Chargers has been moved to Week 7 instead of Week 8. Their Chargers game at the Broncos has been moved from Week 11 to Week 8. And the Chargers game against the Dolphins has been moved back from Week 7 to Week 10. And their game against the Broncos has been moved from Week 6 to Week 11. This allows the Broncos bye week to be moved from Week 8 to Week 5, since they are in pause due to these cases. Similarly, the Patriots' Week 6 bye has been moved to Week 5. The Chargers had their bye week moved to Week 6 from Week 10, and the Dolphins moved from Week 11 to Week 7. Jaguar, there's other stuff going on, but this is making MLB's gymnastics look tame in comparison with how these games and bye weeks are moving up and down.
Yeah, so my big problem with the NFL, and we talked about this as we were expecting baseball to hopefully come back, for the NHL and the NBA to come back, and we basically said the NFL doesn't have to worry about any of this stuff.
Yeah, with the exception of they had to make sure that MLB got off the ground because they were going to copy their model of decentralized locations.
Yes. But we basically said they can wait and listen, see how things are going to happen, and they should be completely fine. They're all tackling each other, so they're all talking to each other, not really social distancing. But if they basically go to the hotel, go to the stadium, go back to the hotel, don't interact with anybody else, have a designated food person, there shouldn't be any problems. And clearly the NFL did not do that. Apparently, though, the NFL offered for the players to be like bubbled at a hotel, not like in a bubble like we saw with the NBA and the NHL, but basically
more like the MLB bubble, in a sense.
Where they would put everybody in the one hotel for that game from Thursday to Sunday. But apparently the players said no to that and balked at it.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
No, but like at the same time, some of these NFL players are the biggest divas I have ever seen. They just like, it just boggles my mind how superficial they are.
Well, remember, we saw similar things with baseball as well. Players going to casinos, lying about breaking quarantine.
Yes, but that got cracked down, and the NFL came after all this, so they should have been aware and like been a lot stricter from the get-go of saying, hey, you can't be doing any of this, this is what's going to happen. We only play one game a week because you guys are too much of wusses to play 2 games a week.
You expect them to remember this while they fight Josh Gruden over how to wear a mask?
It's just
seriously. He wears a different. His mask is in a different position on his face every game, and it's hilarious.
Like, you might want to play from Robin Hood Men in Tights. Like, wasn't your mole over there? He's like, I have a mole. Just moving around.
Every time I think of that, I just think of the Star Trek episode where they were playing as Robin Hood, and just Worf goes, "I am not a merry man."
But yeah, so it's just the NFL's just done everything wrong about this from the get-go. There's been talks about the Titans still can't seem to play, that they'll have to forfeit future games. But like, what about the Steelers? They still have to make up that game.
No, if it's a forfeit, then that means it's basically like in baseball.
No, but like sort of like there's like new rules coming in now. So, like, is the Steelers-Titans rescheduled game grandfathered in, so they still have to play that game, and it's not an automatic loss because that wasn't, like, specifically and explicitly said?
They would probably say that this retroactively applies to the season, especially considering that that one of the biggest issues that I've read about is that the players would not get as much money.
The players don't get paid if the game's canceled. That's on the other thing as well. Is do you want your money?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's widely known that the NFL Players Union is even with their recent grumblings over a new contract in the last year, that they're considered the weakest of the 4 major sports players unions, and. So they could have some resistance. They could surprise me, but odds are that Roger Goodell might just say we're just applying this for everything in the season, including games that we're still waiting to be played.
Yeah, because as much as you want to get your money and whatnot, if you're a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers and you got to like reshuffle everything and you have to take your bye week in week 3. And you're sitting at 4-0 right now, fighting at the top of your division, possibly for a number 1 seed. Now that there's teams available. That Tom Brady's not there in the AFC East. Steelers look to possibly contend for the number 1, number 2 seed. And with the new playoff format, only I believe the number 1 seed gets that bye week. So the Steelers got to grind out everything from week 3 on. That's going to suck for them.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a little biased on my end, but it's not good to have your week 3 be your bye week.
No, it is.
Football it takes a big toll on you. I've never specifically played it, and I know I said they only play 1 game a week a little bit earlier, but
not this year.
It does take a toll. You are pushing on each other, running on that horrible turf, killing
especially in Giant Stadium.
Yeah. So I don't. If I'm a player, I'd rather take that extra bye week, if anything, and just take that automatic win, because why risk taking the loss at this point if you're already fighting? Like, I mean, I could see if you're like 2-2 or something like that, or coming in, it's not quite clear if you're gonna make it or not. Or why even play? You just might as well get the money. Sure, why not? But if you're contending, I'd take the automatic win.
Yeah.
That's just me. So I guess that's about it for football. I guess we'll circle back around to the Lakers.
Congratulations to the Lakers for getting the NBA Finals trophy that everyone expected coming into this. I'm not sure we really say this was a surprise. Probably the only surprise was that it was pushed to a game 6.
Yeah, especially after the Heat lost all their players for Game 3. They ended up winning that. Props to them to show that they're scrappy. Jimmy Butler is definitely an all-star player. I know I had my not liking him and thinking he's a good enough player, but he's proved me wrong. Do I think he's a LeBron type guy or a Kawhi? No, but I think he's definitely in the top 20 for best players right now. And I guess props to him. I've said it before, LeBron's better than Michael Jordan. Some people like to argue the other way and say Jordan's got 6 for 6 in the finals, and LeBron, a lot of those times, a lot of those losses, he was the last man there, or the only guy to really be on that team. The only other time he had a complete team really with him, and they didn't win, was his first year in Miami. Coincidentally, that's who he just beat this year. When they lost to the Dallas Mavericks, when they only really had the one player. Why am I blanking on his name? Dirk. That's his name. That's the nickname. Yeah, it's just amazing what he's done. Last year, the Lakers didn't make it to the playoffs because he had his first major injury over his years playing, that groin injury, and that kept him out about a month. And by the time he came back, the Lakers were just too far back for him to help him go any farther. So it just showed he had that good tandem with Anthony Davis, and he's won his now 4th Finals MVP in each of his 4 Finals victories. So that puts him up in elite company. Props to him on that.
Yeah. It's also now the Lakers are now tied with the Celtics for the most finals wins at 17. Although should be noted that record is 5-1 in Minneapolis and 12-14 in Los Angeles, compared to the Celtics, who are 17-4. So I think, especially for our resident Celtics fan, even if they get a few more wins, who's the more successful team?
Well, you also have to remember the Celtics beat the crap out of the Lakers for
A lot of
good,
those times.
good portions of the 60s and 70s. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Although by that same token, 3 of those 4 losses that the Celtics had were at the hands of the Lakers.
yes, that is true. That was the in the 80s with like the Bird era and whatnot.
Yeah. Although for Michael Jordan fans, that the best record is still the Bulls, who are a perfect 6-0 in the finals.
Yeah, there is that, but I don't know. Would you rather have 17 championships or 6?
True.
So there's that. Yeah, I will say. So we had the Lakers win the NBA championship, the Lightning won the NHL championship, and I said this after the Lightning won. They basically just sort of got like an article off to the side on ESPN.
Well, that's because of the state of how hockey is. Even if it's growing, it's still
Yeah, no, I
fourth
know.
fiddle.
It's just kind of annoying. But you know what's really annoying? All the people that got arrested celebrating the Lakers' wins. All those hippie liberals.
I told you, even in a pandemic, they'd find a way
Yep.
to have their normal celebration.
And to be two political bros, LA is a very blue area. I'm sure there's
Dodger
definitely
blue?
some red people over there.
Yeah, those Dodgers and Angels fans really get at it. I mean,
that took me a second. I'm gonna give props on that one.
Yeah, I peaked my audio mic and I don't care.
Jimmy Crackmore and I don't care. So there's Democrats and Republicans all over the place, but LA is definitely way more Democratic as my dog decides to bark really loud because she clearly doesn't like two political bros.
She doesn't like the Dodger agenda.
But yeah, so I'm gonna say most of those people probably celebrating are Democratic, and the Democrats have been yelling at the Republicans about going out, being social and whatnot. And you know what? This just shows both sides have been wrong in doing bad things and things they shouldn't be doing. But are they going to mention it and say it? No, because that's not how the Democratic media is. So
it's also called some people don't care and are fed up with the lockdowns.
Yeah,
which actually leads perfectly into what's happening in baseball, because tonight, for the first time since when did Rudy Gobert come off the field? Plus one day for the Florida spring training games. But anyway, we're having fans in a baseball game in 2020.
Yes.
Although it's only 13% of the stadium capacity, and it's first come, first serve for the Texas Rangers season ticket holders. But the National League Championship Series and then the subsequent World Series, knock on wood that nothing happens to shut down things, will have fans in some semblance, way, shape, or form.
Yep. Let's just talk about some of that ALDS going on. That was definitely a bit interesting.
Well, for the Yankees and Rays, not so much the
Astros and the
A's. The A's came in.
Well, I mean, it's still interesting with the Astros. It just showed that, as I said, they're hitting. As long as that clicked, I mean, pitching wins you a championship, but you got to have your hitting to score your runs. Your pitchers can't score the runs unless they're batting, but there's no pitchers batting this year.
Yeah, but at the same time, the A's really had been coming into that series wanting to knock the Astros down. They had a chip on their shoulder. Well, they didn't have a chip on their shoulder, but they had some bad blood, as I said. That Mike Fiers, who didn't get a chance to pitch in this series, got but had his whistleblower status still intact. And there was that whole thing with Ramon Laureano and the coaches. But when you look at the scores of all this, that It was a dominant series. 10-5 Astros, 5-2. The only game that the A's won, it was 9-7, and it was by the skin of their teeth. That
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Astros
that
were
still showed the Astros put up a bunch of runs. So
they scored. They scored at least runs in. Actually, no, they scored 10 runs, 5 runs, 7 runs, and 11 runs, which I think says less. Not only the offense clicked, but the A's pitching fell apart at the time they could not afford it.
yeah,
Which is probably expected that in recent years that the A's have had to get by band-aiding pitchers together and relying on young, unproven arms, and I think that showed in the series a lot.
yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about pitching arms and a pitching staff that hasn't faltered yet, we could talk about the Braves and throwing out of their 5 games they played in the playoffs so far, they have 4 shutouts.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that could also be against the opponents. We already said the Reds were an enigmatic offense, to say the least, and then they came up against the Marlins, who we all said was probably
Too good to be true.
Yeah, well ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And so, not surprising that in their
No, but to get 4 shutouts, I mean, that's still impressive, nevertheless.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen too often. I mean, you
Yeah.
see like great pitching staffs go in a 5-game stretch. I mean, granted, it was against 2 teams, but still to throw 4 shutouts is nothing to scoff at.
I don't think that's something even the great teams of Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz did.
Yeah.
So that's saying something.
What worries me though is, did the Astros and the Braves overdo it too much in these last couple series? We saw the Yankees flame out against Tampa Bay towards the end of that series.
Yeah.
And actually, what a Game 5 that was. That might have been one of my favorite games I've seen in a while.
I'm not even mad at it. That was
I'm not. Like I am glad though that the game ended early. Didn't go to extra innings because I had to get up early that next day.
You didn't want to sleep in suspense.
Yeah, I didn't want to have to get up too early, so it was just like, it was just a really good pitching game.
The only game I could fault the Yankees is that Game 2 where they said will we, won't we with Devi Garcia, and that kind of blew up in their face. But the rest of it, the Yankees offense couldn't click in most of the games. That was basically Stanton or bust.
Yeah.
And that showed in Game 5 where they could only get an Aaron Judge home run, and they had several opportunities against Glasnow, and they just couldn't scratch a run across.
Yeah.
I knew if they couldn't get another run, that bullpen was not going to hold for the Yankees, and sure enough, it didn't. But
back-to-back years, Chapman has given up the game-winning home run. So.
Yeah. And then finally, our last team who got it. As much as I was rooting for the Padres with how banged up that pitching staff was against the Dodgers, it just didn't work out. It wasn't their time. They still have the pieces, but it wasn't their time. But I want to talk about, as I said, that Game 5 was great. How about that Game 2? Where the Padres worked back into the game in the 9th inning. They knocked out Kenley Jansen. They got up with the bases loaded and 1 run down in that last battle. That was another great game.
Yeah, I was just going back and forth there.
And and that's also not without that Cody Bellinger catch at the wall to rob a go-ahead home run. That we just had some fantastic division series games, and it's showing in the ratings that the ratings are not that far down, not as far down as they expected it to be with the pandemic and stuff. And in they said the wild card round actually did very well for ratings.
Yeah.
So hopefully with the division series going on, even if the Astros and Rays matchup isn't going to be a ratings market honeypot, the Braves and the Dodgers will certainly make up for it.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay took the first game 2-1, and as we're recording now, it's the middle of the 8th. Tampa Bay's up 4-1. So it looks like Tampa Bay's going to go up a quick 2-0 and put that red-hot Houston offense right down.
Well, I hope so, because the big problem that they would have if the Astros are in the World Series is that the Astros had a losing record.
Yep.
So it's up to the even worse than any of those extra wild card or second place teams getting in, which so far all those have been eliminated. Would be a sub 500 team going into the World Series and winning it. So that is on the Rays to quote unquote set things right.
Yeah. So I mean, part of me is rooting for the Astros to win it all.
Heck no.
part of my cynicalness and dark sense of humor, I think it would be hilarious, like a big middle finger to 2020 and be like, well, what else could have gone wrong? Well, the Astros pissed off everybody.
It's still
shortened season. Players weren't happy with the owners.
Yeah, but
finished under 500, and then they went and tore it up in the playoffs, even though they did nothing in the regular season.
Yeah, but going into that storyline things, how about Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup? The Lakers won the NBA Finals, and now the Tampa Bay and LA are having to go head to head for the World Series.
That would be a good matchup,
especially because even if we can count on the Buccaneers maybe getting into the Super Bowl, we certainly can't count the Raiders, the Chargers and the Rams on getting there.
Well, they have
maybe the Chargers.
What was it? The Chargers probably aren't going to do it at 1-3, but the Rams are sitting at 4-1, which means nothing in the NFL right now, because you see teams jump up like that and then lose like 6 games in a row. So I'm not really counting them in quite yet, but
that and also
if the NFL even makes it that far.
Yeah, that and also Clayton Kershaw deserves a ring.
He does.
Yeah,
especially and who else deserves a championship that's eluded them for a while?
Yeah.
Longtime Yankee anchor Henrik Lundqvist. He officially was bought out of his contract by the New York Rangers and agreed to a 1-year deal with rival Washington Capitals for $1.5 million, which helped kick off a real crazy 2-day, even really 1-day goalie swap. So let's see if I can find it here. Because this was like completely insane.
As the NHL free agency grand openings are usually.
Yeah, so Lundqvist went over to the Capitals, although he's probably not going to be the starting goalie. There's a young guy who's looking to take over there in the Capitals. So Lundqvist looks to be the backup, although there might be some back-to-back games in the NHL since they're starting probably not until January. So they might have to squeeze some more back-to-back games, so Lundqvist might get more games that way to add on to his career and maybe make a cup run. That's eluded. Well, he made the cup run, but of course they didn't win that because Matt Zuccarello had that scary brain injury. And the Rangers sort of lost their spark, which actually the Rangers also lost their spark again. My current favorite, or I guess not anymore, my favorite player for the Rangers was Jesper Fast, but the Rangers elected not to re-sign him, and he went with the Carolina Hurricanes. So once again, can't pick a favorite player. I'm just cursed.
Yeah.
But so Lundqvist goes to the Capitals. Braden Holtby is now with the Vancouver Canucks. Cam Talbot, forget where he went. I think he went to the Wild. Matt Murray got traded he's now with the Ottawa Senators. It's just completely insane. Just what happened on October the 9th and the 10th. So much happened so fast. Just some names of players for just free agency, not just saying the trades. So some big names: Jesper Foss, 3 years, $6 million to the Hurricanes. We have Kevin Shattenkirk, 3 years for $11 million with the Ducks. Matt Murray to the Senators, 4 years, $25 million. Torrey Krug, 7 years, $45.5 million to the Blues. Talk about Lundqvist. Who else do we have here? Cam Talbot, 3 years, 11 to the Minnesota Wild. The list just goes on and on and on. It's just insane how fast and how many players and what just happened. The Rangers, the Pittsburgh Penguins bought out Jack Johnson, and the Rangers picked him up, which apparently not too many people were happy because apparently he hasn't really been the best player, and the Rangers sort of just signed him too fast. But yeah, it's just unbelievable. I don't even know what to do and process this right now. I'm sure you're a little bit lost.
Yeah, NHL free agency, from what I've seen, always goes at a mile a minute. One of the sports YouTube channels that I watch had a live stream for the grand opening of the off season, and he was not disappointed at all with this. I guess I'm kind of spoiled. Well, not spoiled, but kind of suits me better that I follow a lot of the MLB off season, and they do. It's a lot of all right. It starts, but it still takes some days before things roll around, and it usually waits until the traditional the winter meetings. Although that's been less and less in the last few years, and certainly not in this current climate.
Well, did we see? Was it when Machado and Harper signed? That almost took like till the end of, right to the beginning of spring training. Some of those contracts for everything.
Well, that was also because of the ice cold free agencies of recent years, which thankfully Garrett Cole and Anthony Rendon did not have that same fate this year. Although Marcelo Zuna and Yasiel Puig got bit by it.
Yeah.
But there's actually a few things with MLB that I want to bring up related to that. We've been talking a lot of recent months about what's happening to minor league baseball, with how that's MLB wants to bring it under their control, eliminate some franchises, the pandemic wiping out an entire season of revenue for the minor leagues, and as of last week, it became official that MLB is moving minor league baseball's headquarters into the same offices as their Park Avenue office in New York City, and will basically be under direct governance of Major League Baseball. So baseball's gotten what it's wanted, and most likely that means a quarter of all the franchises are not good. They're not going to be outright eliminated. That MLB has said that they're not cutting any baseball teams, but they will no longer be the affiliates of their current, I guess now past franchises. So it's a time of transition for minor league baseball, and we'll see if this is better or worse than what they were complaining about.
Now, the one thing, there's a couple things I guess about this, and the first part is you don't want to lose all those teams because a lot of that's all local stuff. I mean, granted, I don't go to the Jackal games as much as I hope I would, um, mostly because it's a little bit more of a drive, and the people I would normally want to go with weren't always available. Um,
Yeah. But
So-
and I had a,
but it
yeah.
is like a big community thing, like especially if you are there.
Yeah, I spent a summer interning
Mm-hmm.
for the Hudson Valley Renegades, who are the minor league team of the Tampa Bay Rays up in Newburgh on the Hudson River, and that is a very much community thing. Like near sold out games most of the time during nights. You saw the families that housed the minor league players. You looked and talked to all the people who've been there for years and saw guys like Josh Hamilton and Blake Snell and all those guys that come through that have stopped through that system on their charge up the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
It is very much a community aspect, and I fear for some of those towns, especially in the Appalachia and northern and western parts of the United States, that they might be losing it. Now, granted, if expansion ever comes around in this decade, which it should, then you
Mhm.
might see some of those franchises come back as they need to house more affiliates. So this might only be a temporary culling, and then if you expand to 32, 34, 36, I think I said it. If they get to 36 or 38 teams, which seems like a lot, but considering how many cities are interested in a franchise for baseball, that might not be as many as you think.
Yeah, because I mean, you can have Nashville. That could be a team. What is it? Montreal's looking to get another team
Yeah,
back. So I mean, you have plenty of different
Yeah.
teams.
and you have cities, up and coming cities: Norfolk, Charlotte, Las Vegas.
I'm sure Oklahoma would probably want something.
Yeah, maybe not, but Austin, San Antonio, Portland, Vancouver, and MLB is always courted Mexico. So
I don't
there's
know about that one.
yeah, I'm not sure about that, but the point is there are enough capable cities
Yeah.
that could have it. So there is no shortage of franchise opportunities, and certainly the players would want that, especially with frosty free agencies. One way to do that: add 2 more teams that are looking to add.
Yeah. Now, the other side, though, to getting rid of some of these teams is that there are way too many minor league teams, to be honest. I feel like I'm pretty sure I've said it before, but I feel like they just like keep making up letters and numbers and whatnot, and because you have like single A, double A, triple A, high A, low A.
Sideways A.
Yeah, we're like getting into like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with the elevator. It's like upways, downways, sideways, slantways, this, backways, front.
Living La Vida Loca.
There's a lot of players, and we've said it before. Scouting's been getting better over these last few years, getting players drafted in these front rounds, making it a bit sooner, and actually doing fairly decent in the majors, unlike in years past where, was it Ken Griffey Jr. is the only number 1 pick to make it to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So we might have some of those number 1 picks in the next 15 years make it to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, although also this is a list of the teams that were ticketed to be removed when they first announced it last year. Binghamton, New York; Chattanooga, Tennessee; Jackson, Mississippi; Williamsport, Pennsylvania; Staten Island, New York; Connecticut; the Tri-City, which is the Albany region.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of those cities could easily support a minor league franchise, and they might still do in the future. But for some of them, like Connecticut and Staten Island, that that's perfectly fine in the grand scheme of things because there's the Yankees, there's the Mets, the Red Sox, but Albany doesn't. Albany, Binghamton, Jackson, Mississippi. They don't have teams that close to them. That to them that's the highest. That might be the highest level of baseball some people ever see.
Yeah.
And it could be gone.
And I'm not saying like some of these communities can't put together and put fans in the seats and whatnot. I'm just saying like more of like a business aspect where do you really want to keep paying some of these guys money? I mean, I know they're minor league players and like low ball and whatnot, but some of these guys, it's just they're never going to amount to anything in baseball. They're not going to make it. Some of these guys do. Don't get me wrong. But most of these players that like go through that are actually like fairly decent jump up the ladder like pretty fast. But you cut down on some of these teams, business the owners save a little bit more money, and I can understand that point of view.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to keep your fan base there. And honestly, with the way minor league teams work, you've got teams all over the place. I mean, what is it there in Myrtle Beach over there? They've traded the entire franchise a couple times.
Oh yeah, that's because the franchises are under contract with major league teams, so that when the contract runs out and a new team comes in, a whole new slate of players comes in from that franchise.
Yeah, so what that does is like with that community there, say you see a guy like Jose Altuve come up and you're like, oh, okay, I kind of like him, watching him here in the minor leagues, and then all of a sudden like it's trade over, and then you're like, oh, maybe I'm watching Joey Gallo now play. I know timelines aren't matching up like that, but you get my point where maybe now it's a different team. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I started liking that, and now you're branching out a little bit more, and maybe you go buy a jersey for another guy, and it's not really your natural team, but you really like that player.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. This is something that's we're gonna
lots
get more
of messiness, lots of what ifs.
We'll get more as we figure out when the minor league season will be able to start properly. And then the other thing, some more managerial changes occurred. That the White Sox fired their manager.
Yeah, he just can't seem to get a break.
Yeah, well, his problem with Rick Renteria was he was the guy back with the Cubs. He was the guy who would start that rebuild, and all of a sudden Joe Madden became available, and they dumped him at the drop of a hat. And now at the White Sox, he toiled through the last 3 years to finally have a winning season. Briefly, the White Sox had the best record in baseball, which would have had big repercussions for the Yankees in the playoff series, not having to face the Rays. But then they had a 3-10 finish that saw them drop all the way to the wild card and then lose to the A's in that first round. So they knocked him out. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is for some of the choices. Obviously, Alex Cora and A.J. Hinch, who would be coming off their suspensions from the sign stealing scandal, are available and have been talked about. But also, they're reaching out to Tony La Russa, the Hall of Fame manager who won World Series with the A's and the Cardinals, but also got his start with the White Sox. So everyone thought that he was done after the Cardinals, that he won the World Series in 2011, and he said, yeah, I'm done, I'm retiring. And he might actually be coming back.
I mean, I guess props to him, but I don't know. A lot's changed since 2011.
Yeah, I mean, he would. You want to talk about old school managers?
Yeah.
You can't get much more old school than a 76-year-old who is one of the most winningest managers in history.
Yeah, I mean, he might as well be a senator at this point.
Yeah, but apparently,
up there in age.
Yeah, apparently this is a mutual interest that the position intrigues La Russa, and why wouldn't it? That it's a team that very much is built to contend over the next several
Yeah,
years.
I mean, if he can get up with the times, maybe get Trevor Bauer over there to help him out with the technology.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But
and,
it could also prove maybe something, because in recent seasons you've had critics have been pounced on the analytically minded managers. You've had you had Gabe Kapler, who very much criticized in Philadelphia. Aaron Boone has gotten a lot of flack in recent weeks about how he managed the Yankees' playoff run. Dave Roberts for some bizarre decisions, especially bringing in Kershaw in relief at times. So maybe an old school manager maybe could reverse some of these analytically minded trends, saying, know what? Sometimes the book doesn't say everything.
yeah. Maybe that's what you need. I'm always for old school stuff. When I played baseball as a kid, everyone was really just throwing fastballs, but I didn't worry about it as I was getting more into high school stuff. And some of the players were like, "Oh, he's going to throw a curveball, he's going to throw a slider," and I'm like, "I don't even care." And I just got up and I hit the ball, and it worked out pretty well for me. So. I don't know. I think sometimes players look into it too much. I know as you're getting into the pros and you see some of those cool overlays where some of these guys have a fastball, but then they have a slider and they look like they're the exact same pitch and then it tails away, and it's oh, yeah, this is why I'm not a professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot more to it, but at the same time, I think you just gotta get up there and slap the ball the other way when he shifts on you or bunt it.
Yeah. But yeah,
and then I guess the last big thing, Hall of Fame second baseman Joe Morgan, key member of the Cincinnati Reds, he has joined the list of dead old baseball players.
Which also has Whitey Ford as well, who passed away on the eve of the Game 5 of the Division Series.
Yeah, this list is just... And I don't think any of this is COVID related either. It's just the old guys just dropping dead.
The only one that was, which was Tom Seaver, that was just the COVID just aggravated it. He already had dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, he was on his way out. But.
Yeah, so that only just accelerated what was already happening. But he had Whitey Ford at the age of the ripe old age of 91, one of the last players alive from the Yankees dynasty of the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And Joe Morgan, who passed away at 77, much younger, but very much well known for being part of Sunday Night Baseball for many years with Giants broadcaster John Miller. Mm-hmm. I remember him a lot from playing 2K Baseball 08 a lot, and it was John Miller and Joe Morgan as the play-by-plays.
Is that the one you did a lot of simulations and just watched it as you did homework?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah, and I still do that with newer games. I don't care too much for actually playing it, but I like the behind-the-scenes stuff, building a roster, and we'll get into that more as we get to the MLB offseason, and as we basically we'll only have football and NASCAR as active sports to talk about.
Yeah. NASCAR is getting down. They've got the top 8 drivers now. So let me see if I can pull that up. Actually, I forgot to pull that up before. So yeah, basically right now you have Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, who won his 4th consecutive road race yesterday. Logano in 5th, Martin Truex Jr. in 6th, Alex Bowman in 7th, and Kurt Busch in 8th. As the playoff points sort of stand, Harvick's got 67, leading in 1st. And all the way in 8th is Kurt Busch with 6. These are all playoff points that they've accumulated over the year in the playoffs here. So after these next 3 races, it'll be the top 4 guys. The thing though is, you win, you're in. So Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin can both fight it out, finish with the most points. But if Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman, Martin Truex Jr., who are in the bottom three right now, all win a race, which Truex very well could at Martinsville. It's one of those short tracks, and he does well at that, as does Chase Elliott. Those guys could bump Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick from their top two positions, and one of those guys might be the odd man out. So this looks like to make it interesting next three races, and hopefully Harvick, because he's my favorite driver, makes it to the finals there at Phoenix, where it's basically, I think he's got a record 9 wins there. So if Harvick gets there, it's his race to lose. So he's been doing well. He didn't win anything, didn't do too well in this last round of 3 races, but he was basically locked in. Well, Talladega's messy, and so that was the second race. He didn't win the first one. I forget what that leg was. And Kurt Busch won. Talladega's messy. He got wiped out and I believe got his first did not finish of the year there. And then the rain caused some chaos, and of course it's a road race as well. And at that point, Harvick already clinched partway through the race. So it didn't really matter where he finished too much, that he was so far back, but hopefully he'll be good for these next 3 races here, and we'll see how that turns out. And
Hopefully.
We'll see what's going down there in a couple of weeks. So.
Yeah. Well, tune in next week, a couple of you, to find out. Joe, it's been a pleasure as always.
It's been a very big pleasure.
Wash your hands, wear that mask, stay safe, and we will see you all next week for hopefully maybe talking about the World Series or Game 7 of the of the championship series. We'll see.
Yeah. And we'll see if NFL is still a thing.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.